What if I told you that a city Russia loudly claimed to have captured weeks ago is still standing today, still fighting back, and still costing Moscow hundreds of soldiers every single day, and that one so-called surprise attack meant to seal victory ended in complete disaster within minutes? This is the story of Pokrovsk, a city that the Kremlin declared fallen at the beginning of December, yet one that remains very much alive as Russian forces continue to launch attack after attack with little success and enormous losses. Despite Russia's official claims, the reality on the ground tells a very different story, because if Pokrovsk had truly fallen, there would be no need for the relentless assaults that continue to unfold there. Throughout December, Russian attempts to capture the city have gone badly, marked by stalled advances, shattered units, and mounting casualties, and yet Vladimir Putin's forces recently launched another operation, hoping that a carefully planned, surprise, assault would finally complete the conquest they already claimed. Ukraine, however, was ready, and the result was devastating for Russia, as the attack was crushed so quickly that it barely had time to develop into a real battle. According to frontline reporting by Euromaidan Press, geolocated footage shows an entire Russian assault column moving toward Pokrovsk, only for that column to be destroyed less than 1 kilometer from its staging area, leaving behind burning wreckage and the remains of yet another failed offensive. What made this attack especially striking was the method Russia chose, because instead of sending infantry on foot or relying on tanks and armored vehicles, Russian soldiers attempted to advance on motorcycles, hoping that speed, maneuverability, and the element of surprise would allow them to slip past Ukrainian defenses. Instead, Ukrainian FPV drones were already waiting, and the exposed riders were eliminated one by one, turning what Russia believed would be a lightning assault into a lethal trap. This failure did not happen in isolation, but rather as the result of weeks of frustration for Russian forces around Pokrovsk, particularly near the railway line north of the city, which plays a crucial role in Ukraine's defense by allowing supplies to enter Pokrovsk and offering a potential withdrawal route if needed. Russia has repeatedly tried to break through this railway sector, and each attempt has ended with heavy losses, prompting Ukraine to further reinforce the area and adjust its tactics by increasing the number of drone crews operating in key locations. By late November, Ukrainian media reported that these changes were having a clear effect, as Russian assaults were being detected earlier and destroyed more efficiently, forcing Russian commanders to look for alternative approaches. This led to a shift in strategy, with Russia deciding to bypass the railway entirely and focus on the western outskirts of Pokrovsk, particularly the nearby settlement of Hryshine, which sits just outside the city and appeared, at least on the map, to offer a promising opportunity to outflank Ukrainian defenses. Capturing Hryshine would allow Russia to move closer to isolating northern Pokrovsk, threaten Ukrainian supply routes, and increase pressure on the city from multiple directions, potentially forcing Ukrainian defenders to withdraw without engaging in the brutal house-to-house fighting that has proven so costly for Russian troops. Urban combat in Pokrovsk has been especially punishing for Russia, as Ukrainian defenders use the terrain to their advantage, turning buildings into strong points and relying heavily on drones and artillery to destroy advancing units, which is why Russia has been desperate to avoid a direct fight inside the city. Instead, the plan was to surround Pokrovsk gradually, cutting off supplies and reinforcements until Ukrainian forces had no choice but to pull back, and Hryshine was seen as a key step toward that goal. Ukrainian forces, however, were closely monitoring Russian movements in the area, and Ukraine's 7th Rapid Response Corps publicly acknowledged that Russian units, including elements of the 76th Air Assault Division, were attempting to advance toward Hryshine from several directions at once. Ukraine's response was clear and methodical, focusing on cutting off likely routes of movement and striking Russian forces with artillery and FPV drones, a strategy that would soon prove devastatingly effective. When it came time to actually launch the assault, Russian commanders faced a difficult choice, because sending tanks or armored vehicles would make the attack highly visible to Ukrainian drones, while sending infantry on foot would be too slow and would give Ukraine ample time to respond. The distance from Russian positions to Hryshine was only about 3.5 kilometers, but covering that distance safely under constant drone surveillance was a major challenge, so Russian planners turned once again to light vehicles, specifically buggies and motorcycles, which they believed could move fast enough to outrun detection and deliver soldiers directly into the village. Buggies offered speed and maneuverability and could carry multiple troops, while motorcycles provided even greater speed and the ability to make sharp turns, which Russian commanders believed would help riders evade Ukrainian FPV drones. This approach was not entirely new, as throughout 2025 Russia has increasingly relied on motorcycles in assault operations, with reports from CNN and other outlets noting that Russian forces viewed bikes as a potential counter to Ukraine's growing drone dominance. Russian media even released videos showing soldiers practicing motorcycle maneuvers under simulated combat conditions, presenting the tactic as innovative and effective, and the Institute for the Study of War assessed that Russia appeared to be developing a formal doctrine for systematic motorcycle assaults. In rare cases, the tactic produced limited success, such as earlier in the year when Russian motorcycle units managed to capture a short stretch of trenches outside Pokrovsk, pushing the front line forward by about a mile, although that advance was largely due to a temporary Ukrainian weakness rather than any breakthrough in Russian tactics. Ukrainian commanders have since described these motorcycle assaults as bonsai attacks, emphasizing their speed and recklessness, as well as the extremely high casualties suffered by Russian troops who ride into battle with no armor or protection. Despite these risks, Russia was willing to accept heavy losses if it meant gaining a foothold in Hryshine, and planners also hoped that winter conditions would improve their chances by limiting drone visibility and making UAVs harder to control. Fog, mist, snow, and shifting winds can interfere with drone operations, and Russia has previously exploited winter weather to reduce the effectiveness of Ukrainian UAVs, leading some Russian commanders to believe that General Winter would once again be on their side. At the same time, Ukraine was under immense pressure in Pokrovsk, with Russian forces committing massive manpower to the battle and Ukrainian defenders stretched thin across multiple sectors, in some cases facing enemy forces that outnumbered them by as much as 8-1. From Moscow's perspective, the conditions seemed favorable, with thin Ukrainian defenses, fast assault vehicles, and winter weather all aligning to create an opportunity for a successful surprise attack. However, the entire plan rested on one critical assumption, that Ukraine would be caught off guard, and that assumption proved to be completely wrong. According to Euromaidan Press, Ukrainian drone operators detected the Russian assault almost as soon as it began, but instead of striking immediately, Ukraine allowed the column to advance, drawing it deeper into a carefully prepared kill zone. For roughly 1 kilometer, Russian motorcycles and buggies moved forward, unaware that dozens of Ukrainian FPV drones were already positioning themselves for an ambush, and once the lead vehicle crossed into the designated strike area, the attack began. Ukrainian drones struck with precision and coordination, hitting the first vehicle and then rapidly targeting the rest of the column, creating chaos as motorcycles and buggies were destroyed one after another. The winter fog that Russia had hoped would protect its troops was insufficient, and the cold weather did nothing to stop the drones from locking onto their targets, resulting in a devastating barrage that wiped out the entire assault force. Footage from the aftermath shows all vehicles burning simultaneously, clear evidence that multiple strikes were delivered in a tightly coordinated attack, and further analysis suggests that Ukraine had positioned dozens of drones in advance, ensuring that no Russian unit could reach Hryshine. Some Russian soldiers survived the initial strikes, but panic quickly set in, preventing any organized retreat or regrouping, and Ukrainian drones were dispatched to eliminate these stragglers before they could escape or warn other units about the deadly trap. By the end of the failed assault, Russia had lost approximately 10 vehicles and around 40 soldiers, all within less than a mile of their starting position, marking another costly failure in the ongoing battle for Pokrovsk. This disaster left Russia with few good options, as continuing direct assaults will only increase casualties, while shifting focus to another sector risks encountering the same Ukrainian drone tactics elsewhere along the front line. More importantly, the failed attack completely undermines Russia's claims that Pokrovsk has already fallen, because a city that requires constant assaults, suffers ongoing losses, and remains actively defended is clearly not under full Russian control. Even worse for Moscow, Ukraine has begun to regain momentum in the area, retaking territory that Russia previously claimed and demonstrating that Russian positions around Pokrovsk are far weaker than official statements suggest. On December 13th, Ukrainian forces successfully retook approximately 16 square kilometers of northern Pokrovsk, while also repelling 18 out of 19 Russian attacks in a single day, a clear sign that Ukrainian defenses are not only holding but pushing back. These developments show that Russian units are increasingly exhausted, their logistics are strained, and their ability to sustain large-scale offensive operations is weakening, while Ukraine continues to adapt, refine its tactics, and make devastating use of drones, intelligence, and precise coordination. The failed motorcycle assault on Hryshine is not just an isolated incident, but a symbol of a broader trend in the war, where Russian claims of progress are contradicted by battlefield realities, and where Ukrainian forces continue to turn Russian offensives into costly disasters. Pokrovsk remains an active and fiercely contested battleground, and each failed assault brings Ukraine closer to stabilizing the front while pushing Russia deeper into a war of attrition it struggles to sustain, making it increasingly clear that the Kremlin's narrative of inevitable victory is falling apart under the weight of its own losses. If you want to keep understanding what is really happening on the front lines, see beyond official claims, and stay updated with detailed military analysis like this, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next in-depth update.